let's go to Campbell Newman. I'm still on this issue of climate policy and politics. The former Queensland Premier joins me. Can you think of any other issue that has claimed as many political scalps on both sides of politics than climate change, global warming, the whole issue of how we're going to generate our energy? I mean, it just knocks people's heads off every time.
Certainly does, Steve. I think we'd have to go back, to sort of debates of things like conscription, etc., or the banning of the Communist Party and things like that, and quite many decades anyway. But look, it really is crunch time for the coalition on this matter. And my great concern, Steve, is that if, just hypothetically, if they were to, and I would welcome it, of course, my views, if they were to abandon net zero, the trouble is if they adopt but we're going to be, climate friendly, blah, 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 then they're astride the barbed wire fence. What they need to do is listen to people like Stuart, who you were just talking to, and make very clear statements about the fact that net zero is a path to economic destruction, to a lower standard of living, to fewer jobs in this country. You've got to go in hard if you make the decision to abandon net zero.
We had two senators today, Sarah Henderson first, and then you have later today, and this will be in the Telegraph tomorrow, Jane Hume. Here's Sarah Henderson earlier in the day talking about her leader, Susan Lee.
I can't pretend things are good. I do think Susan is losing support, but I do believe in miracles. We can turn things around.
With a new leader or with Susan Lee?
Pete, I am just going to say at the moment that I cannot support the way things are. With
Susan Lee as leader? It sounds like you're not supporting her position as leader.
Well, I can't back in the way things are, Pete, and I've got to be authentic and I've got to be honest about that. And it's very difficult. It's a very difficult time for the Liberal Party.
These things take on a life of their own. Here's Susan Lee responding to that.
I value every single member of my team, including the good senator that you've just mentioned. In order to interrogate her views, you should probably ask her. I'm not commenting on commentary. What I am saying is that every one of my team is absolutely united.
Campbell, you've seen a lot of these things. Once they start rolling this way, inevitably they end up with a challenge. Whether that challenge is successful or not, who would know? But there's going to be a challenge to Susan Lee, whether it comes this year or early next year. I mean, it's inevitable now, isn't it?
Well, it seems to be coming sooner rather than later, mate. Maybe in a matter of weeks in the lead up to Christmas. When people are talking like that, you've got a major issue. But fundamentally, if they're going to change leaders, they've got to think about what the right policy direction is. I think the National Party have done the right thing. I think that Peter Credlin, as usual, has outlined through the pages of the Australian newspaper in the recent days this whole issue, and it is about differentiation from the Labor Party, and there is a huge opportunity here. I believe this whole net zero thing is crumbling at the edges. If you tell the community that the reason for their high power bills is because of this madness, if you point out about the destruction of farmland, perhaps even more importantly, pristine bushland and wild areas, the blight on the landscape of these things, the fact that I've got an industrial building I'm responsible for in the regional city of Mackay. It happens to have a solar panel system that was put on about 10 years ago, and already it's having to be replaced. 10 years or less, Steve. And this is happening right across the country. We didn't have to do that with coal-fired power stations. We didn't have to put a solar system on our roofs and a battery and then still get a power bill. These are the sorts of things that the Liberal and National parties can be saying to people, and suddenly the whole thing falls apart. And they will reclaim vast numbers of people who've gone to minor parties if they're sincere and firm in a change of direction. Tony Abbott, showed the way by opposing a carbon tax. That's the opportunity.
Well said. I agree with that completely. I mean, there's so many issues that the coalition should be attacking Labor on and not, attacking each other. I mean, just have a look at the figures out this week. The Prime Minister's defended a 9.5% rise in the federal public sector wage and salary bill, which now stands at $40 billion. Now, what do all these federal public servants actually do? I mean, I can understand state public servants, police, nurses, all of the rest. But what is that $40 billion getting us from federal public servants in Canberra?
I could be a real smart aleck, mate, and say giving us a greater quality of life, a happier, more harmonious Australia, a safer Australia, or blah, 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 blah. Look, we have one big problem in this country right now. It's called government. To take a leaf out of Ronald Reagan's book. And we talk about productivity, we talk about declining real incomes, a quality of life, a standard of living. It is because of government interference. I firmly believe that now. It doesn't matter whether it's a wind farm, a solar farm, the proposal to have nuclear power, which of course is banned. We're supposedly going to mine these rare earths. All of this is being held up by red tape, regulation. The more public servants we have out there, particularly in this federal sphere, the slower the wheels of commerce and industry and indeed prosperity will turn, Steve. It is time for a rethink. It's time to actually put a lid on this thing because we're all paying the bills as well as seeing ourselves go backwards.
Well, have a guess how many public servants federally. It's gone from 365,000 to 386,000 this financial year alone. I mean, to be a
Steve,
cynic,
I just told you, mate. Steve, I feel happier. I feel safer. What more do you need from me this evening? Come on, mate.
Glad you do. I don't.
Sorry.
I mean, I hate to be a cynic.
No, of course I don't, mate.
You'd have to say that, what Labor's doing is quite cleverly stacking the public servants in Canberra and around the rest of the states because they know that if you're being paid by the government a salary, you're likely to vote for them.
Well, the overall figure, I believe, across the three levels of government is it's about 18 or 19% of the total employed population in Australia is now working for the government. And, that is a worry too, because with the greatest respect to public servants who are frontline workers, there is a real disconnect from the struggles and trials and tribulations of being involved in the private sector. Another statistic that's quite scary is that the average or median wage of private sector workers is actually lower now than government workers. And so why would you work for the private sector? You've got better job security, you're getting higher pay, you've got all these associated benefits. And yet the public sector needs hard-working, risk-taking people in business and private enterprise to actually generate the economic activity that pays the bills, that generates those taxes. I mean, it's crazy to even talk about it, but there's so many people these days who don't seem to get it, and sadly, many of our young people.
And some of our coalition MPs don't get it either. Campbell, always good to catch up. See you next Friday. Campbell Newman there.